It is essentially the Magikarp or Zubat of the Medarot Universe, opting instead for quantity enemies instead of quality enemies. It is BAT01 Gaufbullet, with a kit of Mobile Boost, double anti-air, light legs, and the leg ability of Explorer, which grants S rank on city terrain, in addition to the leg standard matches. Now, anyone who's played the early GBA games, played Medarot 2, or even watched the anime will know this very, very iconic bat type very well, and pretty much expect right off the bat, given his design, especially with his design, he's not going to bring a lot to the table to really expect to be powerful. But if used in correct circumstances, he might possibly be that diamond in the rough. Maybe. And Mobile Boost is a support-based skill that, once activated, will boost the mobility of himself and all allies by about 50%, making his already speedy flight legs very notably faster on the field, as well as that for everyone else that is with him. Right and left arm of anti-air are conventional shooting skills, but with a niche modifier and condition. If they manage to attack an enemy that is also using a flight leg, it will deal an additional massive damage bonus modifier in addition to whatever base damage would be dealt. In all other situations, however, it's going to be dealing very minimal, if best, damage on top of that. Flight legs means that Gaufbullet will have a very high emphasis on mobility and evade at the cost of having a very low heavy limit, or even on top of that having very low damage reduction stats. And in the armor department, he definitely isn't packing the armor either, as expected of essentially the common housefly kind of its incessant nuisance that he can be. With a head HP of about 2500, arms about 2600 each, and his legs at about 2800, he's definitely going to be a very easy target to take down. And on the topic of being easy to take down, even though he is packing a mobility of 940 and an evade of 1848, which are both very impressive stats, having a melee resist of 361 and a shoot resist of just barely 600 means that it doesn't matter what's incoming, he is absolutely going to be facing the brunt of the blow very easily and probably will not last longer than 2 turns. That being said, as a pure set score, I do sadly have to rate this very common enemy a very solid 4 out of 10. Even though he may have some very high speed to his advantage, and Mobile Boost is something you really can't say no to either, as well as even anti-air having its very selective uses. By himself, Gaufbullet is pretty much like I mentioned, the Zubat or Magikarp of the Medarot universe. He's very common, he's very easy to kill, and he's there to be pretty much nothing more than a nuisance more than an actual threat. Unless you somehow find yourself with flight legs, and in that case you should probably be at least a little worried about him. As mixed parts though, I do have to rate him much higher at a 5 out of 10. Even though he is packing basically paper armor with very poor resist stats, his arms may have very selective use if you find yourself lacking anti-air parts, and especially given that he is a model that can be pulled pretty much easily and very commonly from the friend point banner, if I recall correctly, it does mean that any Medarotter has the ability to collect him very easily, pretty much right from day one. So while he may be expensive to raise, perhaps it may not hurt to have at least one arm raised just in case, and then maybe his head for early on if you need that speed bonus. But once you start getting a hold of much stronger, better, and more resistant parts, he's probably going to be the first bot that you dump in favor of those stronger parts.